Hi, Chapter 2 deals with making a systematic list. Now, a systematic list is just a way to organize your information so that you know what's going on, keep track of everything, and hopefully by the end you can solve your problem. So what you do is you first read the problem, but then you start with a list. You want to be sure that you thoroughly understand your system. You monitor your system, being especially careful at logical breaks and points. If the system doesn't seem to be working, don't be afraid to revise it or start over. Sometimes we have to just start over or we have to do something different. But here are some types of lists. Okay, first you can make a list in a table form. Another one is called a tree diagram, and I'll show you one in a little bit. A tree diagram is another type of systematic list and is used to organize information spatially. A tree diagram's name reflects the fact that it looks a lot like a tree. We will see the use of a tree diagram in the extension of the next example. Okay, so let me do an example without a tree diagram first. Alright, so we got Frisbin is the name of this problem. So the object of the game of Frisbin is to throw 3 frisbees at 3 different sized bins that are set up on the ground, about 20 feet away from the player. If a frisbee lands in the largest bin, the player scores 1 point. If a frisbee lands in the medium-sized bin, the player scores 5 points. If a frisbee lands in the smallest bin, the player scores 10 points. Kirk McCoy is playing the game. If all 3 of his frisbees land in bins, how many different total scores can he make? So what we're going to do is we're going to make a systematic list, and we are going to basically just try to organize every possibility of our frisbees. So first of all, we have our first throw, and then we have our second throw, and we have our third throw, because we're going to throw that frisbee 3 times. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add up these points. So all we're going to do is write down every possibility. So what we could do is on our first throw we could get 1 point, and we could get 1 point on our second throw, and we could get 1 point on our third throw for a total of 3 points. Alright, so that's if we land in the large bin each time. Okay, we could go large bin, medium bin, and that would be 7 points. Or we could go large bin, and then that smallest bin for 10 points, and then we're at 12 points. Now in this particular problem, they're just asking how many different total scores. So the order that we do it doesn't matter. So we could land in the smallest bin and get 10 points, and then the largest largest bin and get 2 more points for 12 points. But we just care about our different ways we can do it. So we could land in the large bin, and we could land in the medium bin, and we could have 11 points. Okay, another one, we could land in the large bin, the medium bin, and the small bin, and that comes up to 16 points. We could land in the large bin, the small bin, and we could have 21 points. I think those are all the possibilities if we land in the large bin the first time. Let's say that we land in the medium bin. Well, we could land in the medium bin, the large bin, and the large bin, but we already used that. We used that up here in the second row. So let's try a different combination. We could land in the the medium bin. We could land in the medium bin again, and we could land in the medium bin again. And so that gives us 15 points. We could land in the medium bin, and then the large bin. And so that could give us 20 points. So really, we're not utilizing the large bin anymore because we came up with all the possibilities for the large bin. Okay, so now we could do the medium bin, the large bin, and the large bin, and we could have 25 points. I'm sorry, medium bin, small bin for 25 points. And those are all the combinations utilizing only the medium and the small. So now let's find our combination for the small bin, which we could have just the small for 30 points. And that those are all of our possibilities. So how many different total scores can he make? Well, we can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different scores. Okay, and so when you write up that problem, you start out by saying that I used a systematic list to organize each combination of throws. I can then say I started with all the combinations of the large bin first. Then the medium, then the large. And that just gives me a little statement about what you did, how you started your systematic list, and then you can say, I found 10 different scores. So the write-up doesn't need to be a lot, but it needs to tell me what you did. Okay, so let's now look at tree diagrams. Now suppose that Kirsten has chosen 3 different books for which to write her paper on. How many different orders could she write the papers in once the 3 books are chosen? Use a tree diagram to help you organize your work. Okay, so alright, so what we could do is let's just label her 3 different books, and her 3 different books is book A. So I could write book A, book B, and book C. So I'm going to write that I'm going to use a systematic list and specifically we want a tree diagram. So I could say, all right, she could state that she wants book A, and then she could say that, hey, I want book B, and then I want book C. Or she could go start with A and go to B. I'm sorry, C, and then B. Once she writes a book report on those books, it's done. She can't do any other order if she starts with A. So then she could start with B. And she could say, well, I'm going to go from B to A to C. Or I'm going to go from B to C to A. Well, what if I start with book C? I could go from C to A to B. Or I could go to C to B to A. If you notice, when you make a tree diagram, order does matter. We do have a repeat in how we did things, it's just in a different order. And so now we could simply come off to the side and write out all of our combinations. We have A, B, C, A, C, B. we have BAC, BCA, CAB, and CBA. And so when I count that up, I have 6, how many different orders? 6 different orders. And then you would want to write up a little paragraph or so explaining what you did. Okay. So now let's look at the last problem. The last problem, for her Shakespeare course, Christian is to read all 5 of the following plays and choose 3 of them to write papers about. So here she has Richard III, The Tempest, Macbeth, A Midsummer's Night Dream, and then Othello. How many different sets of 3 books can Christian write papers about? So you can use just listing things out, or you could use a tree diagram. I'm just going to start listing some stuff out. So we're going to use R3 to represent Richard III, TT to represent The Tempest, MB to represent Macbeth, MND to represent Midnight Dream, and O for Othello. Okay, and so what we could do is we could simply start out with, if I read Richard III first. So we could read Richard III, we could read The Tempest. Actually, I am going to do a tree diagram. No, I'm not. We could read The Tempest, and then we could read Macbeth. Or we could read Richard III, we could read The Tempest, and we could read A Midsummer's Dream. Or we could read Richard III, The Tempest, and Othello. So I took care of if we read Richard III and The Tempest first. Okay. Then we could start out with Richard III, and we can move on over to Macbeth next. And we could read A Midsummer's Dream. Or we could do Richard III, Macbeth, or Othello. Okay, so that's if I went to that one next. Now let's say I went to A Midsummer's Night Dream. I could do Richard III, A Midsummer's Night Dream, and then I could do Othello. And that is my only combination. So order does matter on these, because we're only going to read 3 books. It doesn't matter which order. Order doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which order we put them in. Okay, now let's say that we start with The Tempest first. So I could go with The Tempest, and then Macbeth, and A Midsummer's Dream. I could do The Tempest, Macbeth, or Othello. I could do The Tempest, A Midsummer's Dream, and Othello. And that's all I have if I start with The Tempest. Okay, so now let's start with Macbeth. I'll use a different color for that one. And let's say I start with Macbeth. I could do A Midsummer's Dream and Othello. And that's the only combination I have, because I used all the other combinations. So what I did is I just basically moved down my line to find all my combinations, and now I count them up, and I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I have 10 different combinations. So you would write up a little statement about what you did and how you did it and your answer. Okay? So that is how you organize your information using a systematic list. Thanks.